We have Connie Fredrick, a native Houstonian. Connie has experience providing therapeutic treatment. Give her a round of applause as she's coming in here. Make it real loud so that everybody over there think like something really, let's get some more people in over here. I'm gonna go find some folks because they probably over there lollygaggling. Good stuff. But she is in a variety of clinical settings through a solution-focused, equitable lens. She is also a trauma-informed holistic provider that educates groups on the healing benefits of holistic care, including trauma-informed yoga, breath work, meditation, and sound baths. She founded Reinforcing Houston in 2015 to support the needs of Black and Brown communities. Ain't that right, Connie? Look, they just wrote it out for me. I'm showing that I learned something in elementary school called reading. But I receive all of that. And now also representing for the fellas, we have Keyshawn McMiller. He is a published author. Give it up. Round of applause. And that got me like 6 times yesterday. Don't worry about it. Gravity did what it was supposed to do. And he is a published author and the founder of YB Individual LLC, as well as a program manager in the Family and Community Engagement Department at Houston ISD. With over 6 years of experience as an experienced change maker, Keyshawn is dedicated to restoration and fostering inclusive environments. His expertise spans mental health, education, nonprofits, and corporate sectors, where he boosts his self-confidence and promotes holistic well-being. Give it up. Give it up, y'all. Now I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna wrangle some folks up in here, okay? But y'all be a great audience. Y'all two take it away.
Awesome. So I don't know if I can introduce myself any better than that. Y'all know everything about me. But my name is Connie Fredrick. I am the executive director and founder of Reinforcing Houston. So we are a community-based wraparound agency that provides services primarily for Black and Brown communities. We want to identify barriers in the communities and then create programs to help remove those barriers. We say barriers, some people say excuses, whatever you want to call them. We want to get them out the way so that you can live your best life possible. And so one of the ways we do that, we have several programs, but one of the programs we use is our mental health counseling program. And our counseling program, just to tell you a little bit about it, it's twofold, and I love it because we want to serve communities of color, but we do so using therapists of color because representation matters. And if anyone tells you it doesn't, they're lying to you. It does matter. So as we get into this conversation about safe spaces, the need for safe spaces, defining safety, first of all, the benefits of safe spaces, what would happen if you don't feel safe, and all of those other things. Reinforcing Houston in the counseling center, as you guys can see on my shirt, is a space that we ensure is safe. We want you to bring your whole self into that therapy room because that's where the healing happens. If you don't feel safe, healing will not occur. We don't get into it, but that's me. My name is Connie, and thank you guys for allowing me to be here today. I'm excited for this conversation.
No, that's really good stuff, Connie. And again, it's a pleasure to meet you. Joyful day, everyone. I'm glad that you all have braved the continuing downpour. This is just really interesting. Yeah. I was in another event yesterday at the Buffalo Soldiers National Museum, and I was talking with them how I'm from Florida originally, and Florida natives announced, no? Okay, no worries. But hurricane season, I've just never seen, this is just a lot of rain. It's not really common to me, but we're here, we made it. And I'm glad to see everyone here. So my 9-to-5 job, I work in Houston Independent School District in their Family and Community Engagement Department. And so when I think about creating safe spaces, what we do in what we call the FACE department, we go into schools and consult them on basically how to create the schools into a safe space for not only the students, but for the parents and family members as well. One thing that I think about is educational trauma and how a parent may be afraid to enter a school because of how they were mistreated or belittled by an educator, right? How they were mistreated or belittled by an administrator. And so now that has trickled down into how they show up for their children in school. But we know the research says that when parents are engaged in their child's educational pursuits, that can lead to higher academic outcomes, as well as better social emotional health. And so we do things like we consult on parent organizations. So whether it's PTOs, parent-teacher organizations, or parent or PTAs, right? We bring in a variety of programming such as, these are just some of the names you may be familiar with, Lovescaping, which deals with how to connect with your child, not only in the home, but in the school. We also have a program by the name of Life Enhancement Services, and these are community partners that we work with throughout Houston. And Life Enhancement Services provides social emotional training for parents. And so it's not just about giving the students those skills to be their best selves. The parents have to learn something too. Absolutely. Right? There's so much going on with AI and technology, and the students are learning about this stuff every day. But if the parents aren't doing their part, then they fall behind, right? And so then they're not able to show up as their best selves, right? And then in my 5 to 9 job, right, quote unquote, YBI individual, I'm representing ICU HBCU today, which is a component of that. And so really what that mission is to inspire school-aged children and their families to learn about HBCUs. For those that don't know what that is, historically Black colleges and universities. Texas has 9 of them. Okay, fun fact. Historically Black colleges and universities, to learn about those institutions from a younger age, and how might that transform the lives of Black and brown students from an elementary school age, right? You don't have to always be preparing for college, if that's what you choose to do, to learn about these institutions. And so when I think about HBCUs, these are and can be safe spaces for our Black and brown students who may have gone to a PWI and experienced things like microaggressions, right? Whether it's from a student or a staff member, either intentionally or unintentionally. HBCUs, I feel, are spaces of Black resistance and spaces of belonging for Black and brown students. So I'm really glad to be here today, and hopefully we can share some wisdom.
Awesome. What I hear a lot of is the need for safety in several different realms, from education to clinical to community-based. And so I think it would be great for us to define safety. And I would love to hear your definition. When I think of safety, I think of all the different elements of where a person might need to feel safe, or how a person might need to feel safe. So from my clinical mindset, I'm thinking physical safety, emotional safety, mental safety, sexual safety, financial safety, occupational safety, environmental. I mean, we could go into all of them, but I'm thinking that safety is a space. And when I'm talking to my clients, when I am describing, and so often, and I love this, I don't want to get too far on a tangent, but I'll ask, like, do you feel safe? And the primary demographic of my caseload is Black women, y'all. And when I tell y'all, how many, and even without defining safety, even without specifying any of the things I just listed, just the simple question of, do you feel safe? And no rolls off the tongues just so naturally. No. I don't know what you mean by it. I don't know how you're defining it, but whatever just crossed my mind when you said that, the answer is no. And it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking to have almost like the automatic answer is no, I don't feel safe. So if we're defining it physically, no one's trying to hurt me, right? No one's trying to hurt me. But if we talk about occupational safety, do you feel seen? Do you feel heard? Do you feel respected? Are you being spoken to, or are you being spoken at? Is there fair opportunity for promotion and progress where you are? Educational safety, that preschool to prison pipeline is a real thing. Like, they are Xing our kids out before they even get a chance. I'll let you get into that. Sexual safety, financial safety, environmental safety. There's so many different areas in which a person just on a regular basis may not even be fully aware just how on alert, like on guard they are, and that they have to be for their own sake and survival. It becomes this automatic process and mental process where we don't even realize that we are on guard. When I go to work, I'm on guard. When I'm in my neighborhood, I'm on guard. When I go to the bank, I got to get on guard because I know I'm being looked at a certain way. There's perceptions being made about me when I walk into the room, even before I open my mouth and you know anything about me, you're already assuming things about me. So I got to be on guard, right? If I'm dating, I got to be on guard. There's so many ways in which we have to be on guard, and we're not even we could get into how not being safe, not feeling safe, the stress of not feeling safe affects our physical body and our health. Can we talk about it? Not feeling safe in the stress of having your cortisol and other levels up so high all the time. Can we talk about the prevalent, chronic, preventable, manageable diseases in Black and brown communities that are higher in Black and brown than any other communities? Could it possibly be or have something to do with the fact that we don't feel safe and our bodies are at a heightened level for way longer than they need to be? And so the response to our bodies being at this level is now it's affecting our health. But it seems like people can't put two and two together and they have no idea why. We just out here dying for no reason. No, there's a reason. There's a reason. But that's how I would define safety, is having a space in which you don't have to be on guard. You can let yourself relax. You can let yourself be free. You can feel liberated. You're not worried about being judged, about being rejected, about being ridiculed, about being pushed away. Having a safe space is so important for our health, mental health, emotional health, and otherwise. And you know you're safe. This is kind of the barometer I use for you to determine if you are truly safe. If you can make a mistake, if you can falter, if you can trip up, if you can maybe not have all the answers, not be perfectly right, but you have no fear of rejection or abandonment. I messed up and I made a mistake, and I know that you're not going anywhere. I messed up and I made a mistake, and I know I don't have to worry about getting put out. But if you are, and they call it walking on eggshells, if you are in a space where you have to walk on eggshells, that is not a safe space, whether it be in a relationship or whether it be at work or whether it be wherever. If you're in a space where if I make a mistake, that could be it for me in one way or the other, that is not a safe space. And when I say that in couples counseling, you know how many couples are like, girl, get out of my business. Get out of my business. So for you to determine, and that's just a question for everyone to kind of sit with, are you safe? Do you feel safe? Or do you feel like I can't afford to make a mistake, because if I make a mistake, then my parents might reject me. My spouse might want to break up with me. My boss might want to fire me. Those might not be emotionally safe spaces for you. And if that's the case, do you have a safe space in your life? Is there a safe person in your life? And I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but that I think that's a great starting question. Do you feel safe? Are you safe, maybe emotionally? And do you have a safe space? Therapy for a lot of people is their safe space. For a lot of people, you get 1 hour a week, right? 1 day a week, 1 hour a week with your therapist in a space. There's no judgment. There's no fear of abandonment, rejection, or ridicule. Girl, be you. You can lay out on this floor and kick and scream and cry, and I'll kick and scream and cry with you. I'll lay on the floor with you, like what you need. I got you. I'm here with you. It's whatever it is, whatever you need. We all need a safe space, because it's in that space where your system gets to be re-regulated. You get to be grounded. You get to feel loved, right? Okay, that's all. How would you define safety?
No, that's really good, Connie. Are you safe?
Yeah.
Such a powerful question. Yeah. And how often are we asked that question? How often do we ask ourselves that question? I think, like you said, and like I spoke about earlier, there is so much going on. And how often are we checking in with ourselves, in these spaces? And we see things on the news and social media, and we scroll by it and we don't really think anything of it. But then we start finding ourselves feeling tight and constricted, and we're snapping at people, and we don't really know why, right? That question of safety comes to mind. Yeah. When I think about my definition of safety, it goes back to, and I spoke about it earlier in terms of HBCUs, but spaces where I see myself or pieces of myself. Right. So for example, right, I work in this school district, and Houston in particular is pretty diverse, right? Black and brown folks. And so we're always going into schools, and we do this thing at the beginning of the year. They're just called walkthroughs, where we bring in a cohort of parents. We essentially walk through the school, and they're providing suggestions to us on, okay, how might we be able to improve this school, whether it's the physical infrastructure, of the buildings, right? Whether it's how certain lessons are being taught in the classroom by the teachers, whether it's when you walk into the front office and you see someone at the front desk, and are they even acknowledging you, right? As a parent, right? And so when we think about school, has anyone ever experienced that? Any parents, you walk into the school and they just like, they're looking down.
Yeah, don't look at you, don't
what do
talk
you
to
need?
you. Yeah.
You know? And so as a parent, and thinking about the concept of school, without the students that the parents are bringing, there would be no school, right? And so that relationship, right, that dynamic, and it's just so interesting how, in this case of the front office staff, how that doesn't resonate. But I'm sure there's some deeper layers in that as well. And so as a parent, right, you say you're a Spanish speaking person and you're walking into a school and you see a lot of signs, and if not all the signs are in English. How are you going to feel safe when maybe you understand what these signs mean, maybe you don't, right? We're walking through the school and we see, or we don't see, pictures of students that look like me, right? And so again, right, my definition of safety centers around, am I seeing myself in these spaces, right? Whether it's a physical space, am I seeing myself in these parent-teacher groups? Let's say I'm in a school, I took my child to a more affluent area because I wanted to give them a better opportunity. I wanted to give them access to more types of programming, but I myself may not be of that same demographic. And so when I try to show up to these parent organizations to give my insight, it's sort of this, I think about the movie Mean Girls, right? It's sort of this mean girl clique, right? Where, okay, they're there, but I'm only feeling tolerated.
Right.
And have we all felt that way before?
Yes.
That's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
And so eventually what's going to happen? You might go to that meeting again just to say, but eventually you're going to get a little quieter and quieter and just not going to show up. And of course, we're doing this for the sake of our children. And how do you tell your child, I just don't feel safe in that space? So those are what's coming up for me.
You mentioned something a second ago, Keyshawn. You said for you define safety as when you can see yourself in the space. And that is, I think I have been looking for language, and I think you just gave me the language. And I mentioned during one of the workshops I facilitated yesterday, one of the things that I had to get to a place to be able to say, and I broke it down with my therapist and had a chance to process it, was there was something that would happen when I'm in a space that I couldn't see myself in, like a space where I wasn't represented. And I finally one day with my therapist said, I don't feel safe in white spaces. And I didn't fully know what that meant either. I just knew that was probably the best way I could describe what I was feeling in that moment was I don't feel safe in white spaces. And so I don't know what I was defining safety as at the moment, but when you said safety could be defined as you being able to see yourself being represented in that space, could that be maybe what I was not able to explain in that white spaces? I didn't see myself at all in those spaces. And maybe that's why I wasn't feeling safe, because I wasn't represented in those spaces.
Yeah, and right, when you think about seeing yourself, yes, visually is a piece of that, but okay, I'll take it back to education. And what are we always talking about? Culturally relevant programming and materials. So are they talking about Black and brown authors, right, when we're reading these books? Are they talking about HBCUs when they think about college and career readiness, or are they just, talking about University of Houston, for example? And this is a piece that really affects me because although I graduated from an HBCU, I also graduated from a PWI during the time of the George Floyd riots, right? I was up in Michigan. And so sitting in classrooms where I was sometimes the only Black person talking about these topics, and I have a social work background. So, social justice, these are, some of us have a savior complex. And the unfortunate piece is that sometimes I was looked at as that go-to person about these topics. And so how do I freely talk about these things in a space with people that I don't feel safe around? And so what they always say is, well, it's not, number one, it's not your job. It's not my job to educate you on these facts or on these topics, right? I'm not the guru of this, right? You should feel inclined and empowered to go research yourself, right? That's what's going to make me safe in this case, in a white space. Yeah. Are you doing your part to ensure that you can acknowledge and have the awareness of, hey, I may not be seeing you represented in this space. What can I do to assist you, right? How often does that happen?
I would even go a little step further than that. Yeah. I would love if they even ask, would you like me to assist you?
That's good.
You know, would you mind if I assisted you in being better represented in this space? That would be great. And as we're kind of moving into what are ways that if we're not feeling safe in a space, what are ways that we could cultivate safety? And then also, what are the dangers of not being safe? And I kind of spoke about some of that earlier. Yeah. The dangers of even not feeling emotionally safe can absolutely impact your health. And I mentioned that just a few minutes ago. Not being emotionally safe also can cause you to shut down. I can almost guarantee you, and I can't speak for other people, but for me, if I'm not safe, y'all not even gonna know what language I speak because I'm not gonna open my mouth at all.
Might not even show up.
Right? If I'm not feeling safe, I don't know how many people have gone to like work meetings and they're just like, oh no, tell us how you feel. Tell us what you think. We want to hear how you feel. And you're like, this is set up. This is a setup. I'm not saying nothing. And why is that? Because we don't feel safe. Because we know, just like when I talked about safety earlier, if I say the wrong thing, right? Even if they don't come right out and punish me, they're going to start acting funny with me. Yes. I might lose opportunity. People going to start isolating me and ostracizing me and not talking to me. I'm not safe here. And what do we do when we don't feel safe? We shrink, which is also why I'm not going to get too far into it. But in relationships, when we don't feel safe, we shrink. When we don't feel like we're being properly supported, we shrink. When we don't feel like we are going to be uplifted and encouraged, or even take a chance. I want to take this chance and I want to step out and try something new, but I don't feel safe. And if this new thing fails or doesn't go right the first time, then I might be pushed to the side or talked about or ridiculed. And I'm so afraid of failure, I don't even want to try. Versus when you're safe, I'm going to try it. Even if it fails, I know I got people backing me. I know they're going to lift me up and encourage me to try again. When you don't feel safe, you're less likely to want to launch out. You're less likely to want to take strategic risks. You're less likely to want to try certain things when you don't feel safe and have a healthy support system. So whether it be at work, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be at home, in schools, if we don't have a sense of safety, you're less likely to thrive. You're going to find yourself surviving a lot. And as people of color, it seems like I don't have numbers, but I would take the risk of assuming that a large percentage of people of color are oftentimes in survival mode. I feel like that might be fair to say. And when we don't feel safe, you're less likely to get out of surviving and into thriving. We deserve to thrive, y'all. Yes. We do. We deserve to be able to live our best life. But if you don't feel safe, you're not going to. Because safety, when you don't feel safe, you want to try to take up the least amount of space possible. Almost like, if there was a critical situation happening, I'm going to try to find somewhere to ball up into a corner in a back room. I want to take up the least amount of space possible. I want to be quiet because the bigger I am, the larger target I am. Mm-hmm. And if I don't feel safe, then I'm making myself a target in an environment in which I could be harmed in some way. So whether it be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, occupational, environmental, all the lulls, right? All of them, all the things. If we don't feel safe, you're not going to move out of survival and into thriving. You're not out of surviving and into thriving, and you deserve to thrive. You deserve to thrive. You do.
No, that's really good. I think about another piece of that. When you don't feel safe, you may shrink, but you're also not bringing in your true authentic self, right? And so I think about things like code switching, or think about, let's say, I'll speak for myself, right? I was growing up, people called me things like, Oreo and things like, oh, you talk white, And so, number one, that didn't make me feel safe. But what it also did was it forced me to conform to a way of behaving, to a way of speaking, to a way of acting and maneuvering, in this case, through the academic environment to get what I want. I had a fear that if I behaved in a more authentic or true to myself way, that I would be devoid of some of those opportunities, that I would get looked at as, is this resonating with anybody? Has anybody ever, it's just taking me back. And so, one of the dangers of not feeling safe is this conformity to whatever the dominant ideology or whatever space you're in wants you to be. And you do this day in and day out and day in and day out. And you might wake up one day to find yourself saying, who am I?
Yeah. Who am I?
Who am I? Yes.
I have a question for both of you.
Sure.
We're talking about how we are unsafe. What are some things that we can put in place to create safety?
Great question. You wanna go?
Yeah. I think first and foremost for me, starting off with the awareness of knowing you're not feeling safe, right? And then hopefully, as you spoke about earlier, Connie, where are some spaces that you do feel safe? And literally taking some notes and saying, this is how I feel when I feel safe. This is how I show up when I feel safe. And so now when you're in these new spaces or with these new people, if you're not feeling that, question, am I feeling safe? What's going on around me? So I would say awareness, number one.
That's great. Can I piggyback on that?
Yes, please.
A little bit more. Thank you for asking that question. Because when we're talking about surviving, and I mentioned that we deserve to thrive. Well, how do we get there? How do we move into that? And so that awareness piece, my little clinical brain is just like, I'm thinking, like you mentioned, checking your body. Your body tells you so much. Your body is gonna signal sometimes when we get nervous, our stomach gets tight and our hands might start to sweat and the hairs on the back of our neck start to tingle. Your body's communicating something to you. And the more that we can practice either sitting with ourselves, meditating, journaling, the body scans, okay, where are my shoulders at? Ooh, what's going on with my stomach? My mouth is a little dry. The more that we can start to sit with ourselves, learn ourselves, be able to identify what our body is trying to tell us. And then as you mentioned, when we're in spaces where we feel safe, learn to be able to identify, man, I'm talking up, I'm engaging, I'm laughing, I'm smiling, I'm opening up, I'm feeling courageous to throw some new ideas out there. I'm raising my hand. I'm getting involved. I'm getting supported. Even if I don't know all the lingo and all the clinical terminology, everybody's so supportive and so kind and so helpful. I think I feel safe. I think this is what safety feels like, right? I can step off the stage and trip and fall and I'm gonna laugh, but 2 or 3 people gonna come over and try to probably help me up. I'm safe here. Nobody's going to think any less of me. I'm not going to get kicked out. I'm not going to go, I think I'm safe. And so when we do kind of move back out into the world, go back to work, go back home, go back into these other environments, recognize, wait a minute, I'm shrinking again. I'm shrinking. I'm sitting in church and I'm shrunk. Wait a minute. Good. Am I feeling judged? Is this pit, this thing that I'm feeling in the bottom of my stomach, is it anxiety because I'm afraid to speak up? Am I sweating because are my shoulders tight again because I'm afraid that they're not laughing with me, they're actually laughing at me? I think I don't feel safe here. And so us being able to recognize where I feel safe versus where I don't, and then being able to find a way to minimize those unsafe spaces and maximize those safe spaces. Now, we all got to go to work and make money. Now we got to eat. We got to keep the lights on. But is there a way that I can find ways to insulate and protect myself even in spaces where I don't feel safe? Because of where we live, and we're assimilating on some level, and we can't get away from that. We can't get out of that unless you go move to a island somewhere. Can't get away from that. But when you are in those spaces, recognizing that you're not safe, let's be honest, your body's communicating to you that you're not safe. And protecting yourself while you're in that space, and then doing more of being in those spaces, more of where you do feel safe. I can't get out of being at work, but can I get to more conferences like this? Can I create more community? Can I have friends that I can call when I get out of work? Can I have events that I go to on weekends that can pour and fill my cup up so that it gives me the ability to tolerate the fact that I do have to go into this job, if you have to, because you don't necessarily have to, but to go into these places that maybe aren't as supportive. I saw 2 hands.
Just real quick on the space of protecting yourself in those spaces where you don't feel safe,
Mm-hmm.
and we, aligned it with your shrinking. Mm-hmm. So how do I protect myself in a space that I don't feel safe, mm-hmm. that also doesn't detract or belittle or kind of like diminish me? How do you protect yourself?
I would love to tell you that just don't go into those spaces. I would love to be able to say that. It's not always possible to try to completely eliminate all. If you can, God bless you, teach me how. But if you can't, you do what you have to. And this is why I said assimilation, right? We don't judge anybody if they feel like they need to code switch, right? Everybody's on their own journey. So if that's how you feel like you protect yourself in that space, by all means do you. As we're along this journey of what does protection look like for me, you're going to sit there and be quiet. This is not the space for me to speak up. This is not the battle for me to fight. I'm going to reserve my energy, my love, my communication for spaces where I am accepted and loved. I have to be in this space, so I'm going to do what I need to do to get through this time period. Maybe I do sit quietly. Maybe instead of raising my hand, I might do a one-on-one instead. Right? Instead of engaging in a large way where I make myself a target, I do something different. Figuring out how can I listen to myself and still respect myself in that space. And it looks different for everyone. It does. It would be great to say, well, just stay out of all spaces that you don't feel safe in. So you're not going to go to church, school, work, home, education. Don't go to public school. Don't go to private school. Don't go to the grocery store. Stay out the bank. We live in America, y'all. So what does it look like for you to keep yourself safe for the time being that you might be in spaces that are only tolerating you and not accepting you? Maybe it is, this is not the space for me to speak up. This is not the battle for me to fight. There are other spaces and battles that I'm going to choose to invest my energy in. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
For me, what I do when I find myself in unsafe spaces, and this has come through therapy of finding ways for me to feel safe in my own being, is grounding techniques, practicing mindfulness. Even if I can't speak up, at least say, well, do I have a thought? Am I engaging with a conversation? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I build up that courage to raise my hand and say something, and then maybe 2 or 3 people in the room have the same thought.
I love that. If I can't be safe here, can I be safe here?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, yes, ma'am.
We really appreciate that insight. And you kind of hinted on where I was going. Maybe you're not safe in a space. Are there other people around you that may look like you that are also not safe? And so we know that there are strength in numbers, right? What's that Michael Jackson song, You Are Not Alone? And so sometimes you are not, okay, excuse me. And so sometimes, right, you may not be able to convert an unsafe space into a safe space, but you can strengthen your armor with those people around you who may be going through the same thing. Couple of hands.
So with that thought process, how do we cultivate spaces where, so for example, we're all sitting here together, right? So we were looking for this opportunity to find a safe space, but there are a lot of us in the BIPOC community that do not. What thoughts and ideas do we have around cultivating other spaces to where we're like, hey guys, look, we're over here, this is safe, come over here and like, let's have that conversation. Like how do we go about doing that for a wider scale?
Do you mind if I flip it back? I would love, because I feel like you might have an idea. Do you have an idea of how ways in which we can say, hey, we're here for you. If you're not feeling safe, this is a safe space?
Well, the nonprofit idea that I have, that since you did that, the idea that I have is, I mean, it's basically just around that. It's creating an avenue and a safe space for people that look like us to say, hey, look, I've been hiding behind a mask for my entire life. I'm ready to take it off, but how do I do it? And so the name of it, so it's called Black Mental Avenue, and it's literally creating that avenue and that space for people to do it, right? To come in and just, I'm hurting, can you help me, right? Where are the culturally competent therapists that know what I'm talking about? Hello, where are the ones that look like me and understand my struggle that makes me feel safe enough to say, actually, this is something that I've experienced. You may understand it. This feels safe enough for me to do that. So that you flipped it.
Can I tell you?
You answered it.
You did answer it. I was
Not only
sensitive.
did she answer, she's building it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you asked, because you have an answer for the
Yeah.
question that you asked. I felt that as soon as you start, I'm like, you already know the answer to that. But it takes, there are change makers out here. There are visionaries out here. There are program builders out here. There are directors out here. There are stakeholders out here. There are those of us in the community that we've been given the vision to build what our community needs. And so we've been given these visions because our community needs us to build it so that they can have a place to go. So if we're talking about how do we build community, there those of us who've been given that gift to do that. Our community is waiting on us to execute the vision that we have so that they have a safe place to go to. Keep working.
Okay.
Keep working.
Got an
We
Instagram?
do it.
We'll talk offline.
I would just think that, so in management, you kind of have to be mindful to how people are interacting. And when you're seeing people do certain things, you realize that it may not be as comfortable of a space as you feel like it is. Like when you have a virtual meeting, somebody's always, rather than speaking out, they'll put their message in the comments. And so you're reading it because they don't feel comfortable with speaking out loud. So, you can try the one-on-one and try to foster a better sense of comfort for everybody in the group until you get a space where you feel like everybody is comfortable. So I mean, you do your part where you can, but then you try to figure out what is it that they don't feel comfortable with so that they can kind of open up a little bit more. And then some people just don't like to speak out in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But for
The
those
caveat
that do,
there.
and they just need that nudge, you let them know that the first step with putting your comment in the message board was good. So maybe next time say it out loud so that we can kind of speak along with you, because some people are feeling the same way you are.
But
Well, even to go to that comment piece, right? Let's say you're putting your comments in, right, like you're on a Zoom meeting, right? And so if you're not, let's say you're in a space and your comment is just not acknowledged. And so now you're even further not feeling unsafe. So you don't even do that. So what's something that, if you're in management, what's something that you can do to empower people to hopefully move up to unmute and speak? Well, hey, James in the chat said such and such. Oh, they saw my comment. Just because I presented in this way, I'm still valued. My opinion still matters. And so when you continue to do that, right, you feel safe. And maybe James will one day say, unmute. And you say, James, is that you? So you're building that. Right, if you're in a management space, having that awareness and acknowledgement to say, hey, just because someone shows up in this way, maybe this is where they are right now, but their opinion and their voice still matters.
And I was going to say
That's a
the
good point.
caveat is good management. There we go. All right, I think we're almost just about out of time. I'll be hanging around for a little bit, so if you guys want to come and chat, we can definitely continue this conversation. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to meet Keyshawn and to have this
likewise.
conversation with you guys about safety. Like I mentioned before, and I can't stress enough, if you are in survival mode, find community so that you can stop just surviving and actually start thriving, because you deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you.